Hi, I'm Tony from the Marathon Mates. On this episode, we're going to be talking about all the things you need to know about running etiquette, whether you've been running for a long time or a short time. There's lots of unwritten rules when it comes to the etiquette and manners around running. On this episode, we're going to share our tips and our tricks on becoming a mindful and considerate runner. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the flying runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Flying Runner podcast. This is our 50th episode. Now, on this episode, we're going to be talking about running etiquette. With the recent increase of, right around the world, of the number of new runners joining our sport, it's important that people understand the do's and the don'ts on becoming a respectful runner. Whether you're running for fun, doing a park run, or racing in some of the biggest races on the planet. Being considerate and mindful of others can go a long way to ensuring not just you, but everyone has a fun time. We're going to share our tips to ensure you know all the key things required. But before we do, I'd like to welcome, as always, my co-hosts and fellow marathon mates, Tim and Tara from Team Ellis Running. Now, Tara, I know that you're a big fan of running etiquette, so I can't wait to get your take on all the rules that we need to follow or else. But before we do that, how is your week of running? What are we? 3 weeks from Gold Coast. Wow, isn't it sneaking up? So, how are we? So first up, Tara, and hi, Tara. Hi, Tim. Tara, tell us about your week of running.
Hey Tony, thanks for that. This week I've been doing well. Didn't do too much. Did a 15k run with Patrick, our son, on Friday to do some Gold Coast half marathon training. Just taking it nice and easy, teaching him that you don't have to go at 400 miles an hour to do your long run. It was really good. We did Parkrun at North Lakes this week, and I always enjoy North Lakes Parkrun. It's a nice little 3-loop course. It's always fast and fun. So, yeah, lots of people we know there. Tim did a good time, I think. Didn't you, Tim?
Oh, yeah, I just cruised. 22 minutes 30, 22 minutes 24. But the important thing out of that was my heart rate. I only averaged 145 beats per minute, so I was pretty happy with that.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah,
very good.
Whilst I say I was cruising, I was actually felt like I was going really fast, but I had a low heart rate, so I'm happy with that.
So,
yeah,
long
Sunday.
Run for you,
Yeah.
Tim? Long run on Sunday? Or both?
Yeah, so we knocked over the long runs. I'm up to, I was aiming for 33 kilometers. I got to 31.5 kilometers, and the brain just said that's enough, and it just stopped me from running. Sometimes you get that. And I just walked it out the next sort of half kilometer. I got to 32 Ks, which is about where we start finish. And so it was okay. I still was able to run consecutively non-stop for 31.5 kilometers. I was happy with that. Average pace about 5:44. So, I'm in reasonable good shape for what's coming up in 3 weeks, and I'm happy with where I'm at. But, a little bit disappointed I didn't get the extra K and a half, but it's not really going to matter. Look at Tara rolling her eyes.
Well, it's a K and a half. It really doesn't make much difference on race day, Tim, especially when you've already trained up as much as you have. And in all honesty, I was supposed to go out for like a 3-hour run, and I stopped too many times to talk to everybody. So I only ended up doing 21 Ks because I stopped to talk to too many people along the way. And then I looked at my time and I'm like, oh, Tim will be coming back soon. I better keep on the move. So, yeah, I only ended up with 21 Ks, instead of my 3-hour run, which would have brought me up to about 27, 28. So
Yeah,
yeah.
excellent.
How was your running week, Tony?
Well, once again, we had a bit of a quiet week, I guess. But it seems to be working. We went for a 5K run on Friday. Was it Friday? Yeah, it must have been Friday. It was only 5K and it was a bit of walk run, just me and Sharon and Tim. So that was really, really good. On Saturday, I went out for a long run, aiming to do 25 and got through 25. But the interesting thing that I found, and this was ended up being pretty dumb, by the way. I wore the shoes that I'm planning to wear on Gold Coast, which are my Saucony Endorphin Pro 3s, which are a carbon plated race shoe, right? And I've had these shoes for like a year. I got them for a really good price because I never pay full price. So, and they've just been sitting there. I tested them out once. I ran for 3K in them, and then another time I did a 5 in them. And I thought, well, let's give them a go and see how they feel over a longer distance. And they felt amazing. They felt really good. And as I've started off on Saturday, not feeling any different, I've looked down at my watch at the first K and it was 6 minutes spot on. And I'm thinking, gee, that's quick. I've got another 24 to go, Tony. So my next 4Ks were all in the 5-minute mark. And I'm just going, oh my God, what have I done? So I broke 29 minutes, 29:07. I haven't broken 30 minutes for 6 years, right? And that was my first 5 on a 25K run. So I thought, okay, back it off, whatever you're doing, back it off. Then I went 101. So I broke my PB for 10 at 101. And I'm just going, yeah, so much for backing it off. I did actually back it off. Then I got my best ever time for 15. Then I got my best ever time for 21. I broke my PB for the half marathon, which I'd only set the previous
The week before. Yep.
And then I thought, yeah, just whatever you're doing, that's it for today. So I then purposely shortened my stride, and the last 4Ks were really quite, I think, 8-minute Ks or something. But so it was a really good time for 25 anyway. Pretty stoked. But
wow.
felt pretty broken, to be honest. I thought, yeah, that's the extent of it at the moment. So, but the next day I was feeling good again. So I'm not quite sure what's going on, but I felt pretty good. And this week I'm not going to wear my race shoes. I'm just going to wear a normal pair of my Sauconys and purposely take it slow because I need to get to 30 this week to be really comfortable with where I sit for Gold Coast. So that's it from me. It was a very interesting training session.
That is awesome. That shows you're on the right track anyway. So now you've just got to do one more long run, I guess, and start thinking about tapering, I guess, after that.
Yeah. One of my friends at work said to me, they said, so has your wife been slowing you down all this time? And I said, no, not at all. We run together, and this is just the first chance that I've had to run by myself. But I said, I'm really looking forward to getting the Gold Coast Marathon done because then Sharon and I can start running together again. Because, at the end of the day, it's been a journey. I've enjoyed the journey, just seeing how far and how quicker I can go. But I'm missing the fact that we do it together. So really looking forward to getting Gold Coast done and dusted. And then just getting back into running together and looking forward to Sydney and New York. So
Sharon hasn't been holding you back. You guys have been building a base together is what it is. So that's how you have to look at it.
Yep.
And that's exactly what I didn't say.
I'm building a base with my wife. That's what Tim, you're building your base with me.
Ah, yes. I've built quite a base.
You have, unfortunately.
I want to, just before we move on to the news, I want to talk about one of our local park runs, Sandgate Parkrun, just on this weekend. That's just been, every year they do a speed week where they invite all the running clubs in Brisbane to come along and bring all their people to have one sort of mass parkrun event with all the local running clubs in it. As we know, Parkrun is not a race and it's not promoted as a race, but at this one particular event on one particular time every year, they hold it. They had a total of 873 runners run it on Saturday at Parkrun. First place ran at a time of 14 minutes and 26 seconds because Sandgate is a flat, fast course with just one turnaround on it. If you ran a time of 16 minutes, you would have finished in position 63. If you finished at a time of 17 minutes even, you would have ran a position of 128th position. And if you thought, oh, well, I'll just go for 20 minutes, 5-minute pace, 4-minute pace, you would have finished in position 321. There were 321 sub 20-minute runners at Parkrun on this particular day. It was just crazy. So my time of 22 minutes at North Lakes on the weekend would have put me in position 409.
Wow.
And Tara, your time of 30 minutes and 27, which is a very respectable time, would have ended up in position 666, the devil's number. So, so it's pretty crazy, this one event. They do it every year. Tara and I actually avoid it most years because of the crowds that are there. But it's pretty phenomenal to see how many fast runners there are around Brisbane. As I said, 63 runners were sub 16 minutes, which is just unheard of.
Unbelievable. So it would certainly be one that I would be avoiding, and but it's good to see that they actually do this. And just before we get to the news, I just want to do a shout out to Super Steph, one of our marathon mates and people that tune into the podcast. I was looking at my son's photos from the Brisbane half marathon, and coming through the Ivory Street Tunnel, I think it was at the time.
Yep.
There's my son looking fantastic, and right beside him is Super Steph. So I just thought the coincidences that you have in once you start meeting people and getting to know people is just phenomenal. So a big shout out to Super Steph. And with that, it's time for the news. Okay, Tim, what's been happening around the world of running over the past couple of days?
Well, I know for the last couple of weeks, I've been talking about the Australian marathon team selections for the Paris Olympics. And the good news for Australia, guys, is we have a third contender now for the men's event. So we have 3 women who've qualified, and now we have 3 men who've qualified. Liam Adams has now been added to the list of qualified runners, and he now will represent Australia. So the 3 men competing for Australia are Liam Adams, Brett Robinson, and Pat Tiernan. And it's really good news for Liam. He was rated in the top 80 marathon athletes in the world, which sort of is what they're looking for, the top 80. But they took away the bottom, whatever it was, 10 or 15 positions to give to other developing countries. And then they've obviously not used those spots and then been able to hand them back to people who've qualified. So well done to Liam Adams on getting there. And it's good to see Australia qualify 3 men and 3 women, the maximum amount we can have in the Olympics. So
yeah,
I'm really happy about that.
It's also a full-time tradie as well. So it's this is a part-time gig for him for this running thing. So for him to qualify is pretty amazing. Like, he's not like he does this as an all-the-time thing like a lot of the other professionals do. So the tradie runner, big heads up for him. Yeah,
it's
great
awesome. Work. And it benefited the US as well. So they now got a team of 3 men going as well. So
Corora was able to qualify as well. So yeah, it's a very interesting process, the Olympic selection, as we've said, and nobody can ever figure it out. But anyway, they've made it. Now the biggest news of the week. Oh my God, this was massive news, and it's created all sorts of kerfuffle around the world. The Boston Athletic Association made an announcement during the week that they've changed the unicorn logo for the event. Oh my God. So the changes are huge. The unicorn is now looking even more prominent than it did before, and it's now looking to the right instead of to the left. I think that's the only change I can really see in it. But apparently, according to all the information the BAA has put out, it's facing to the right because that is forward facing. Its spike or cone or whatever you call that thing that sits on a unicorn's head, faces to the northeast because that is the way that the course runs, from the northeast. Apparently the unicorn has a more determined and focused eye. He's got a more athletic jawline. And there's 13 spikes on his mane to represent each of the 13 decades that the event's been running. So guess what? In 2 years' time, when they hit the 140th year, 130th year, and they enter into their 14th decade, they're going to have to add an extra spike in. So, and then there's some merging at the base, which showcases the two sides coming together. That is the history and the future of it all coming together. So, and there's a broken finish line tape in the middle of his neck. I think it's actually okay. I don't mind the logo. People say it's making the Bank of America logo underneath it look even more prominent. I call bullshit on that, by the way. But there's a lot of angst. There's a lot of people who hate change when it comes to Boston. You just go into social media and you can see all about it. I don't understand it. I really don't. It's just a logo.
It's really funny because I saw a number of different posts and things like where people have painted like a snippet of the logo on their window of their house, and there's people that have got along the route, of course, and people have taken photos of that and said, who's going to compensate these people? And it's incredible the amount of drama over a logo. I mean, seriously. Yeah. And I'm like you, I don't mind it. I don't necessarily understand the facing forward bit. I get that we go, the route goes, but can't you be facing the other way and still be going forward? Yeah, I think
Tim,
it's marketing.
We might have limited edition Boston merchandise because we've got the old logo with the new Bank of America stuff on it, and it's the only year. So
it's the only year, limited edition.
Yeah.
25,000 million copies of each of those things were put out there, but anyway, it's limited enough. Anyway, you can go online and look at the logo and make your own decisions on that. In local news here in Australia, the Sydney Marathon now has a new TV deal. They've done a deal this year with SBS, which is one of our local government-owned broadcasters. I'm not sure what happened last year. It was broadcast on Channel 10. And I think watching it last year, Channel 10 did a really good job here in Australia. Channel 10's a commercial TV station. It must be a money thing where Channel 10 didn't make the revenue or didn't feel that they got the returns they wanted from it, and either pulled the plug or SBS has swooped in at a cheap rate to pick it up. But either way, it is going to be broadcast live. It is going to be available on both free to air and also on SBS Demand, which is the app streamed version online. So yeah, I think that's still good news for the race. We don't get a lot of live local marathons or running races broadcast here in Australia, so really good news. And the final bit of good news is that we had Comrades ultra marathon run over the weekend, and our very good marathon mates and former guests on this show, Jen Kellett and Terry Frew, both ran the almost 90-kilometre event. As I said last week, it changes every week, the distance. This year it was 86 or 87 kilometres or 85 kilometres or whatever it was. It was the shortest year ever. But anyway, both Jen and Terry finished it. Jen came a very respectable second in her age category, which is the 60 to 69 year age category. Remembering she is at the top end of that 69 years age, and she won't mind me telling people that. She ran this almost 90 kilometres in 9 hours and 8 minutes at an average pace of 6 minutes 24 per kilometre, which is phenomenal. And also remember, this is an uphill year, so the course was predominantly uphill the whole way, and she's ran 6:24. Terry finished the event with a very respectable time of 11 hours, 38 minutes and 9 seconds, and he beat the cutoff by 22 minutes. So not quite close enough to the cutoff as, Team Curl or Team Ellis at Boston, but 22 minutes over 11 hours and 38 minutes of running. He's run it pretty well at an average pace of 8 minutes per kilometre, 8 minutes and 8 seconds.
And Terry had been battling some injury that he'd managing really, really well. So for him to even complete it, I've got to take my hat off to him. He's done an amazing job.
Yeah.
And a big shout out also to another friend of ours, Claire Wall, who also competed the event. She's in the same age category as Jen and finished in 11 hours and 25. And the really scary thing is, just looking at all the social medias, Jen is already committed to going back next year and running it in the 70 to 79 year age group, and is hell bent on winning the age category. And I saw something briefly before on social media about Terry maybe considering going back next year as well. So maybe he's fallen in love with running 90 kilometers. I don't know.
Yeah, idiot.
He must have said that after. Yeah, he must have said that after a couple of beers, I think.
And you can only imagine how fulfilling that it was, to get through the to do comrades. I mean, we all know how we feel running a 10K or a half marathon it's always that, or a marathon. It's always that sense of satisfaction that you get, and I would imagine that would have been magnified. And not that we want to make a craze of almost just keep beating the cutoff. We want people to beat the cutoff by miles, right? And heaps of time, and that's what we train for. But yeah, in Terry's case, he's been battling a knee injury predominantly, as well as a couple of other little niggles that you get. And for him to do what he did is just, I cannot even contemplate it. So congrats, Jen, Terry, and of course Claire. Well done, all three.
Oh,
and
one other thing.
I will
Terry's
call
back.
you idiots. I will call you idiots. Because, and especially now, I'm going to definitely call Terry an idiot, because back to you, Tim. What's he doing next week?
The Big 5 marathon. So he's going to
Idiot.
go and back it up and run a 42, only a 42 kilometre run next weekend through the Big 5 game reserve, where he can see all 5 of the Big 5. Yeah,
Crazy.
absolutely crazy.
Right.
That'll just make him run faster when the lion's chasing him.
Yeah, unbelievable. But massive effort, all three, and I look forward to catching up with Terry and having and shouting him a beer. I think he fully, absolutely deserves that. So,
well, Jen's up for the Gold Coast as well, and she'll be doing the double there. So
Super Steph's doing the double as well, she was saying. So yeah, mate.
We're convincing everyone to do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Team Ellis are very bad influences on people.
You will not influence me. So thanks, Tim. Let's get on to this thing called Runner's Etiquette. I did a funny little out and back episode, not last week, the week before, about things that frustrate me on race day. So I've been looking forward to this episode, because I know that this will help people not get frustrated, not just on race day, but on any day that they're running. Now, Tara suggested that we're going to break it up into 3 different running situations. One is etiquette when training, number 2, etiquette at parkrun, and number 3, race day etiquette. So many of the tips are probably going to relate to all 3. So if they do, we'll mention that at the time. So Tara, I'm going to kick off with you, I think. So what are your 10 key etiquette tips when training?
Okay, so I guess my number one thing is be alert to what's around you. If you are going to run with headphones that go over your ears like completely or AirPods, have it so that the volume's low enough so you can actually hear what's going on around you. If there's a bike coming up behind you, you can hear the bell ring or whatever. Also, stick to the side that you drive on, if that makes any sense. So here in Australia, we drive on the left. So stay on the left, pass on the right. Same as if you're in America, stay on the right, pass on the left. Just a bit of common sense. If you see other people coming towards you when you're running on a narrow path, go single file. Don't stay three wide and then expect somebody else to try and move around you. Just have those sort of etiquette things. If you stop to have a chat, can we just hop off the path instead of staying on the path? That would be really, really good.
Especially in trail running, Tara, where you got narrow paths.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you're on a bike path and a road run like type thing, obviously make sure you're safe when you do step off the path. Just as I said, be friendly to people and stay aware of what's going on around you. People like friendly runners. None of us like the cyclists that come up, or none of the cyclists like the cars that come up too close to them. We don't like cyclists that come up too close to us as runners either. So if you're going to be running and you're not aware that there's a bike behind you and you're moving around, just be aware that you can just annoy them as much as they annoy you. And if anyone here is actually listening and they take their dogs for a walk, can we keep our dogs on a short leash? And be aware that if your dog's going to go meet another dog across from you, that there's not a runner behind you first, that you're going to trip over the lead, because that has happened to me a couple of times. Respect other people's space when you are running. Just be aware that, running behind somebody breathing like a steam train like I do may not be the best etiquette either, because it's quite intimidating, especially as a female, to have a male behind you that close. Just let them know that you're there. My big one as well would be take your rubbish with you. We all need to fuel when we're running, and especially on training runs or trail runs. Please, just wherever you get your running fuel from, put your rubbish back where you've got your fuel from. Like if you've got a pocket or vest, whatever, please don't leave it on the trails. Don't leave it on the paths. It just makes us all look really bad, and it's just better for the environment, I guess. Yeah. Just be friendly to everyone else as well. I guess everyone likes to have a hello, how you going? Well done as you go past, especially on the training runs. It sort of encourages me to go, I can't walk now because I've got runners coming towards me and they'll see me and then they're going to say hello, well done. So I like to keep myself running from that.
Yeah, good tips. It's can be very frustrating when people block the path and have no awareness. And I think one of the general rules of thumb, just working through this, is the awareness of other people is so important when you're out there. And that's why those over-the-ear headphones, they're great for podcasting, but they're not so good to run in. So,
and also private property, like don't run on people's private property. Like I find a few people have, entered other people's property, and it's like, just be aware that if you are running, that shortcut may be actually somebody's backyard or back paddock for their horses. So yeah.
And use public toilets, not someone's garden.
Front yard. Yeah. Have I forgotten anything there, guys? I mean, obviously that's just my training tips, obviously. For normal training runs.
A couple there just on the dog one. Just be mindful of the signs of stress with your dog, as you know, Tara. Just because you like to run a half marathon every weekend doesn't mean your dog wants to run a half marathon every weekend.
Yeah,
And if the
especially if you've
dog's
got a brachycephalic breed like a French bulldog or a
Mm.
pug, please don't run those sort of dogs.
And I think the other one for us is that friendly and courteousness towards other runners. Always say hello as people are running in the other direction. We've made so many good friends over the years, and we see them every week, as you hear on this podcast. But it's also a level of safety factor as well. As you get to see people and recognise the same faces, you can keep an eye out for them. They can keep an eye out for you. They can tell you what's happening up the track a little bit before you get to it. So from a safety point of view, if there's somebody a bit odd up the track, they might stop and let you know. And use, if you are running with other runners, use some of the signs. Runner up, bike back, runner back, whatever, just to communicate amongst each other, so you all know what's happening around you at all times.
Mm. Yeah, excellent. So let's look at park running then. I'm going to hand it over to you, Tim. So what are your 10 key tips for park run?
Well, some of these have probably come out of being a run director with Tara for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years at our local parkrun, and some of them come back from frustration of having to deal with some of the issues that we've come up with over the years. But one of the first bits is always arrive early at parkrun. Don't expect that everyone's going to wait for you because you arrive at 7:01 or 7:02 and expect everyone to hold the start for you. We've had that a couple of times at our park run where people have run down to the starting area and tried to hold the start up before we get to it. And it's like, no, get there early, get there for the pre-race briefing, respect the person who's giving the briefing by actually being quiet and listening to the person who's giving the briefing. Don't talk through it. It's nerve-wracking enough having to get up in front of 100, 200 or 800 people and actually go through what's happening on the course that day. So it is really important that you stop and listen and show respect to the volunteers, because the volunteers are giving up their time so you can have your run. And whilst talking about volunteers, it is really important, particularly at parkrun, but it's also the same when you're racing, to thank the volunteers. At the end of the day, the volunteers are doing it because they love it, because they want to, but at the same time, they're doing it so you can run. So make sure you do stick your hand up and you do volunteer 3 to 5 times a year at least at parkruns to help the events along. Remembering parkrun is not a race, so sometimes it does get crowded at the start. I know where we were at North Lakes the other day, it gets crowded. And because it's not a race, it shouldn't really matter if you're blocked off and you have to slow down for 10 seconds or 15 seconds whilst the crowd sorts itself out. So just be mindful that you're not always going to get a perfect run or a perfect race at parkrun. It's not about you; it's about the community, and it's about everyone coming along and having a good time. But at the same time, it is important that if you are looking for a PB or you're looking to go fast, that you try to seed yourself and start at the right place in the event. If you are going to walk it or you are going to be quite slow, don't start up in the very front. You're just going to block the path for people behind you. So try to self-seed, try to work out where you are. It gets a bit hard when you turn up to a new event where it is. If you are turning up to a new event and you're not sure, just start back a little bit further and just see how it goes. You're not going for a PB. In fact, you are going to get a PB if it's your first time at that course anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Blocking the paths, same thing that sort of Tara was talking about there. It gets really frustrating when you've got 2 or 3 people that are running abreast, side by side, next to one another, and they're chatting away and they're oblivious to what's happening around them, and you're trying to get around them and you can't. There's bikes or there's other runners coming in the other direction. So if you are those sort of people that like to run in groups and side by side, great. It's good for you. It's good for your mental health. It's good for your friendship and all that sort of stuff. But just be mindful of everyone else around you. Parkrun, as I said, is not a race. It's about the community aspect. It's about the fun side of it. So make sure you're encouraging people along the way. It's how people come into the sport. It's how Tara and I got into the sport of long distance running. Was through Parkrun. So encourage other people, and you never know. It might be that they're the next marathon people that are going to take up the sport. Parkrun is not about elitism, and it's not necessarily about running fast, yet some people think it is. And at the finish, when you do finish, keep moving. Don't block the finish line or the chute. Work with the volunteers. And if it gets crowded, pull out your mobile phone, put up the volunteer app, and start scanning some barcodes to help out the volunteers a little bit as well. You'll also get a volunteer credit for it. As Tara said, and we said, keep your dogs under control. Running in crowds can be daunting for dogs. Keep them on a short lead and at the back of the pack when you first start. Children, this is one that used to always frustrate us. There is a global rule within Parkrun that says if your child is under 11 years of age, they must be within arm's reach at all times. Now, it's a global rule. It's there to protect the child so that they don't get banged up by other runners running over the top of them. It's also about making sure that children don't run off the course and get lost on the course, which has happened around the world at times, where at times in a couple of instances they thought that they'd had a child being snatched. So it is important that you do run with your child in arm's reach. And if at the end of the day you aren't following that rule, don't get upset when the run director says we can't record your result today because you've broken the rules. Don't get upset at the run director. It's a global rule, and that's what the run directors have to say if you're caught running without your child within arm's reach. And the most important part, and it's probably the biggest part of the whole parkrun thing, is it's about the community, as I said earlier. It's about making friends. It's about encouraging others. So go out and have a cup of coffee, have a chat afterwards, talk to some of the people, make friends. That's what it's all about. So they're sort of my key etiquette rules. Tony, Tara,
Awesome.
have you got anything else to add?
Yeah, be welcoming to the new people as well. So I know the parkrun that Tim and I were run directors at, we're very, very, I like to call it, and so does Tim, the friendliest parkrun in Brisbane.
Australia.
In Australia, sorry. We are very, we like to welcome the new people. We like to make sure that everyone is included and that they feel welcome to Parkrun. If you see somebody standing by themselves, oh, hey, how you going? Is it your first Parkrun? You know, do you need help? Or, you know, just how you going? You know, some people don't want to talk. That's fine. It's their own personal space. But if somebody does look a little bit lost, it doesn't hurt to reach out. That's for sure. And it's a nice way, as Tim said, to make new friends. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, well done. So, just in my short time doing park runs, I would agree with each and every one that you've just talked through there. I think from a new person joining parkrun, I think it's pretty awesome the way people show up to the briefings and give the race directors the respect that they deserve. Most of them that I've seen in action are actually almost quite timid in some respects. So it's must be challenging for someone who is quite an introverted person to actually stand up there and start talking through some of the stuff. But yeah, well done, great stuff. Sorry,
I was just going to also say, Tony, that it doesn't happen very often now. But it used to happen quite frequently where the results wouldn't always go through in a timely manner, or there'd be some errors in the results. They've fixed a lot of that issue up. But if you do get a result and it's not right, or they've mixed up the results, or you don't get a result because the timing equipment's failed, don't get angry and upset. Don't send off emails. It is what it is. Just come back next week and have another shot at it next week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people like to vent their frustration at the people who are only volunteers, who have no say in it or able to make any changes.
Yeah, yep. And one of the park runs I ran, Risa, it must have been Wynnum, I think, didn't have a photographer on course. So it was really interesting because that's just a volunteer position that just wasn't there. And hopefully people didn't get angry or have any angst about that. I certainly didn't. I thought to myself when I saw the post on Facebook, I said, oh yeah, I didn't think I saw anyone out there taking photos. So it's just they didn't have enough volunteers. So
sorry, Tim.
Tara, you go.
I was just going to say, Parkrun is all volunteer based. Every single part of Parkrun, there is a few paid positions in head office, but every single park run that you go to is run by volunteers every single week. So, as Tim said, just volunteer a couple of times if you can, because without volunteers, parkrun's not going to keep happening. So, yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, Tony, if there were no photos, did it really actually happen?
It's on Strava.
Let's talk about race day. I'm going to talk about race day, and I've got to say that I have been guilty of some of these tips. As I'm guessing, everyone who has run, from first timers in races and onwards, but you learn them pretty quickly. So, number one, seed yourself properly. Tim was just talking about seeding yourself at Parkrun. The same thing will usually apply for races. They'll ask you for an estimated finish time. Don't try and cheat. And if you're a 6-hour runner and say that you're a 3-hour runner and get in one of the faster corrals, all you're doing is, in many cases, creating a bit of a safety hazard. So just be mindful of that. Yes, we do want to try and get in as early as we possibly can, especially in some of the bigger races where there's some cutoffs that may concern you. But be considerate of where you seed yourself in some of those races, if they do indeed allow you to just put in your time. More and more, some of them are asking for verification of times now. So in many ways, some of that has been dealt with by the organizations. Run to the right or left. I mean, you heard Tara talking about that. Whatever side of the road that you drive on, that is the best place to run, especially if you are going to be a slower runner. One of the things that I learned very quickly when we ran New York is that if you're jeffing or if you need to stop, it was really quite overwhelming or quite interesting for me to see people raising their hand, because that was something we didn't do in Australia when we were out and about. However, that's something that I always do. Once I actually realized that every time they put their hand up, they would slow to a walk, I'd say, oh, it only took me about 12 Ks to work it out, but I did ultimately work it out. So just one of those things. If you are jeffing or if you do need to walk and it's crowded, just put your hand up so give people some advance notice that it's going to happen. Drink stations are often chaotic, especially the first couple on a course. And that was one of the things that frustrated me on the Brisbane Half Marathon at one of the stations. A young lady suddenly realized running in the middle of the road that we're in the middle of a drink station. So she just bolted across with no consideration to anyone else, and it caused not just me but 3 or 4 runners to check their run. And unfortunately, that's when injuries can happen, when you get out of rhythm and you suddenly, but they can be chaotic. Move in, grab your drink, and then move out. And often don't stop at the first table. Often you'll find much more space on the tables that follow. Don't stop at the table. Just a lot of people now walk through drink stations. So just be mindful of that. And sometimes for a race strategy, that's often a good way to be, but don't walk beside the tables. So get your drink and sort of move out in a space that allows people to be running through. So number 4 is rubbish. The key here is don't litter on the course. Now, when we all ran Tokyo, Tokyo is the cleanest race in the world, and they've got a number of volunteers with holding out their clear plastic bags for rubbish. But every drink will have bins at drink stations. So hold on to your cups, your gels, your packets until the drink station and dispose of them there. It just makes the race cleaner, and it makes it safer, because I think we would all have memories of London and the orange Lucasade, where it just felt like we were sticking to the road in certain parts of the race. But also, if you get a roadway that's just chockers with empty gel packs, it is really quite dangerous. So please.
Well, there was a runner that actually broke his leg about 400 meters, was it, from the finish line, where he tripped over a water bottle at London. Was it this year, I think? So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
So,
Even this year at Boston, they had all the plastic cups, not paper cups, plastic cups,
Yeah.
and they didn't have enough bins at the drink stations. They're all over the ground and they're blowing everywhere, but you're crunching your way through the cups, which are wet and slippery, and you could feel your feet sliding. So
Yeah.
do the right thing, put it in the bin.
as Tony said. Sorry, Tony, back to you.
Yep, you're right. So the other number 5, don't cut other runners off. Have a look over the shoulder before you pass to make sure that you're not going to be impacting others, especially when you're passing slow runners. Snot rockets. Now, we all love them, where we just have to blow our nose and we'll just do it wherever we need to do it. And or just throwing water out of empty cups. Always, once again, just double check over your shoulder and just be mindful that whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's a snot rocket or you're tipping water out, that it's not going to go in the person who's just coming up on your right shoulder or your left shoulder. Once again, volunteers are the salt of the earth when it comes to races, so make sure we're thanking them as we go through. Portaloos, let's face it, no one loves a portaloo, but please use them with consideration, because if we all were a bit more considerate using them, I don't think we would have them in the state that they are. Please
Also,
do the right.
time-wise, it's not time to check your social media or upload stuff while you're sitting there waiting for the race start. Don't check your social media. Seriously, get in, do what you do and get out.
I could not think of anything worse than sitting on a portaloo when you're all sweaty and saying, "Oh, look, I better check my socials." But if you are that person, don't do it. It's
No.
in,
Don't
out, gone.
You want to touch as least amount of things as possible in a portaloo, because who knows what's in there. So why contaminate your phone that you're going to put up to your side of your face later on to make a phone call with?
And quick tip for all race runners out there, it's normally a good thing to carry some wet wipes with you, just saying. So when we're talking about consideration, don't ever, now this is a big one, because we love our bandits, don't we? No, we don't. So don't ever cheat with someone else's bib or create your own bib. And we call it bandits. Bandits do that. It's wrong. And it just means that someone who's a genuine racer may not get an official time, place, or medal. So we've just had another a marathon, the Edinburgh Marathon, where medals were not available for all of the finishes. So,
and Tony, you've got first-hand experience with that one.
At Boston in 2023. So more and more, we're seeing some influencers starting to run races without being registered for a race. And once again, that's just, you're just being dangerous. You're not covered by anything. You haven't paid your registration. And if you actually have an accident that involves a registered runner, that could potentially have some legal implications. So it's dumb. So don't ever cheat with someone else's bib or create your own. It's just wrong.
On that one, Tony, some people do a lay flat the night before and then post it all over social media, or if they're at the expo, they post a photo of their bib on social media a couple of days beforehand. Don't do it, because what happens is those bibs then get used for bib banditing. People can see the numbers on there. They can then create a bib that looks like that and then go and race with your bib. Don't share your numbers or your bibs with anybody before the race.
Yeah. The last one is just about your headsets. Keep the noise in them low so that you can hear the people around you, including race officials, if there's ever a need for them to give you directions during the race, or there's an ambulance coming up, or
Achilles runners.
Yeah, there could be any sort of reason. So the key to me, I think, is, people, we wear headphones, but it's either a single bud in an ear, or it's your bone conducting headphones, or whatever they are, your shocks type headphones. Don't wear. I don't think a lot of races allow those full over ear headphones anymore, which is a good thing. But once again, just make sure that you can hear what's going on around you. You're not just in your own world. You're actually running a race with thousands of other people, and the key is to be safe for yourself, but to be considerate of others. I think once again, that whole thing of being considerate of other people while enjoying what it is that you do is one of those really clear messages. But in respect of racing, guys, Tim and Tara, is there anything further, even though you've been adding along the way anyway, but is there anything further to add around the etiquette for races?
I guess just think of it like you would if you were in a car. You wouldn't just pull out without checking your blind spot first, or anything. Well, some people do, but just try and be aware of your surroundings is really what it comes down to. Be aware that you're making other people's experience enjoyable by doing the right thing by other people as well. So, yeah, it might be a bit inconsiderate of others when they turn around and throw a cup and you get sprayed with water, but don't do it back to them. Does that make sense? Like, just try and be aware of what's going on around you is what I'm trying to say there. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The only other thing I would add is whether you're at training, whether you're on parkrun, or whether you're at race day, is that you are considerate of other people if they are struggling. So quite often you'll see somebody they're running along in front of you, and then all of a sudden they grab at their leg or they pull over very suddenly and stop. Check in with them, be a human first, and check in that those people are okay and that they don't need any medical help or attention, and then continue to run, even in a race, right? You might be going for a PB, but if it takes 10 or 15 seconds to just make sure somebody's okay, or half a minute to make sure they're okay, it's probably not going to affect you on a longer run anyway. But from a human point of view, do the right thing, look after each other out there on the course. Even if you don't know the person, make sure that they're okay. Give up your time if you have to make sure that they're going to be safe, because too many people in this sport get injured or collapse and pass out and unfortunately die. And if more people are stopping and actually helping them and providing first aid, it might actually save some of those people.
And 95% of us, or 99% of us, aren't running for the Olympics. If you're running for a Boston BQ and you miss it, look, you'd feel probably a lot worse if somebody had a heart attack next to you and you just kept running because you wanted your BQ and they died. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, just, yeah, as Tim said, just be considerate of other people.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, that wraps up the chat. Did we cover everything? And if we didn't, just leave comments or share with us any of your thoughts around any runners' etiquette that we missed, and we would be happy to share them on a future episode. But
other countries, do they do other things in other countries that we don't do here that we may have missed? If anyone's got some suggestions, would love to hear them.
Absolutely.
Japanese listeners, we know that you guys are nice and clean and tidy, but if we've got any other suggestions, German runners, anyone, we want to hear everyone's etiquette. So put it in the notes.
Absolutely. So before we finish up, we always get a tip from Tim, of course. Tim, I've got a funny feeling I know what this one might be all about, but what's your tip for the week?
It's because it's on the run sheet in front of you, Tony.
Don't ruin the suspense.
Don't ruin the illusion. So my one is around being a considerate and mindful person, right? I've just talked about being a human. Running is about getting out there and spending time out in the world, and most of us, we do it for our own reasons, our own whys. But doing the right thing won't really impact upon your training. It won't impact upon your performance, and it may or may not probably impact upon your race times either. If you see people out there that are struggling, stop and talk to them, stop and help them. Don't be the asshole out on the race who blocks people or cuts people off, or who throws water on people, or doesn't check their shoulders and bumps into you or almost trips you over on start lines. Be the good person, be the nice person. And if you're going to be a nice person, then you'll have a good race. No matter what happens on the day, you'll have a great, enjoyable race. And that's really what we're all doing it there. And probably the other key thing is, don't be scared to say hello to people as you're running, either on the race day or out on course. I know, Tara, you've made a lot of friends just on race days, running at the back of the pack, talking as you do to people. That's how you met SJ, one of our guests, and how you met Reese, who's coming to New York with us later this year to run the marathon, just by talking to people at the back, introducing yourself, saying g'day, asking them what they're doing. It just makes it a bit more fun and enjoyable for everyone. So get in there, say g'day, make some new friends, and really enjoy the sport for what it is, rather than being the asshole that is more focused on a PB and a time than on being a nice person.
Just remember, finish lines, not finish times, people.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Thanks, Tim. We're just about to close off for the evening, but before we do, Tara, what's on next week?
Next week, so we're going to talk about the functions that our Garmin can do. So I probably should have a look at my Garmin and actually learn a bit more about it myself, to be entirely honest, because I know I do not use half the features it has. Last week we mentioned that you can use your Garmin to monitor your body battery, which is something I do use when it comes to rest and recovery. But there's so many other functions that a lot of Garmins have. We're going to try and dissect all the common functions so that you can get the help and make the most out of your Garmin watch that you can. Or maybe Tony, you might want to add an Apple thing in there. I don't know. But it should be
throw it in the bin.
It should be a good episode. Obviously, there's more than just Garmin for running watches, but I think all three of us use Garmins. So if you're not a Garmin user and you want to learn a bit about Garmins, feel free to join us.
Absolutely. And just you just reminded me I needed to put some charge into mine. So I was just taking it off and putting it on the charger beside me. Because you get 5 days of charge, but every now and again that 5 days comes around and go, oh my God, and you forget about it. So, hey, thanks, Tara. That wraps us up for the night. So once again, video of this episode is always available on Spotify and YouTube, and audio will be found on Apple, Amazon, and just about every all good podcast platforms. If it's not on your podcast platform, that just leaves maybe that isn't a good podcast platform. So it's on all good podcast platforms. If you've liked this episode, of course, please like and share your tips. Please like and review. That helps us get found by other people who may find the episode enlightening. Share your tips also about runners' etiquette that we may have missed. We'd love to hear them, so please share them. Remember, everyone, every step forward is a victory. Lace up, hit the road, and we will catch you on the very next episode of the Flying Runner podcast. Until then, happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running. See ya.